AskReddit by the stylish insider. What city disappointed you the most when visiting? Cairo. This was 2009, so some important things have changed, but the country and people were so desperate for tourist dollars that it felt impossible to go anywhere or enjoy anything without feeling like you were being scammed. Also, everywhere smelled like cigarettes and there was trash all over the streets. I was being approached by airport employees thinking that I was getting general help, directions through the airport and whatnot, only to realize seconds later they just had side hustles as tour guides and wanted me to use them for my trip. I blame a significant portion of my depression on Atlantic City. I had to go there for a convention and parked away from the center so I wouldn't have to pay for parking, and it was like, oh, so that's why Baltic Avenue is so cheap. Port-au-Prince, Haiti, was taking a leak at an outhouse. Plumbing was a luxury. Beside a canteen-like dive and a kid popped up through the hole and begged for a quarter. This was before the earthquake made it worse. Wait, he was in the toilet hole! Exclamation point. That's hard because I usually know what I am getting into, but I'll say Jackson. I went to Jackson for work and stayed at a nice hotel downtown. Figured I would walk somewhere and get dinner. Got to my hotel and enjoying a few cocktails, and it got about dusk and I looked out my window and it was I Am Legend deserted. Like scary AF deserted. No people, no cars, nothing, and it was like 7 PM. I ended up getting room service. I remember just wandering in Jackson for 10-15 minutes from the downtown core in broad daylight and I ended up in a ghetto. Jackson is the only place I've visited that I remember telling myself under no circumstances am I ever coming back here. Granted, if you did go to Jackson, their Civil Rights Museum was one of the most interesting museums I've ever been to. Casablanca, Morocco. It was just really boring with nothing to really do. Which was nothing like the rest of Morocco where the people were super friendly with amazing food and lots to see. Marrakesh was literally the complete opposite experience. TBF, the movie is basically about someone who is trying to leave the damn place. That's my experience and attitude toward Jamaica. The tourist experience was so bad as to make me never want to go back again. An unending horde of locals constantly hounding you for dollars. I heard a comedian put it perfectly. Jamaica is the only place I've gone to a shopping mall that then followed me around the rest of the day. Pisa, Italy. Aside from the tower and cathedral, there is nothing to do. Pisa is a day trip, don't be like me and book 3 nights there. My tour group stopped in Pisa for a photo op, then back on the bus to Florence. Now that is an amazing city, I actually preferred it over Rome. I know this is a cliche at this point, but Dubai was just awful for too many reasons to list. You know that massive cockhead who wins the lottery and immediately buys a frozen champagne sculpture of his own scrotum and 2 Filipino slave boys to carry it around? If that person were a city, it would be Dubai. Gary, Indiana. I drove through it to get to Chicago. Didn't even get mugged once. I have a friend that lived there for a couple of years growing up with her family. When I asked about her experience, she said in all seriousness, it's really not that bad once you get used to people breaking into your house every now and again. Not a city but the hotel district in Tulum, Mexico. It's known for beautiful beaches with a jungle to urban interface, but the whole area was monetized to the max, making it hard to enjoy without spending outrageous money. I was half expecting it, but sad to see it reduced to that. Topeka. I'm just laughing that anyone had to visit Topeka. Weird reasoning, but Monaco. I went there for gratuitous displays of vulgar wealth and snobbishness, but all I got was a small dull city by the coast. It's disappointingly bland. The wealth at Monaco is so wealthy that I'd wager most of those folk don't have it as their primary residence, so they're only there for the big events and then fuck to the next event elsewhere. In that sphere there's actually like an unspoken social calendar that circumnavigates the globe from event to event, all the wealthy going from one place to another. Not me scanning the comments to fight anyone who says my city. What's your city? I'm sure I can find a reason to list it if you want to argue. Why picky? I'm from Hawaii and grew up along the beach. Went back as an adult with kids. Haven't been back since I was 19, and I was so heartbroken and disappointed by how much everything declined or stagnated. Waikiki made me so sad. I visited Hawaii for the first time in 2023, so didn't know what to expect. You can tell Waikiki used to be gorgeous, but they turned it into a shopping mall. Little Rock, AR. My expectations were low, but fuck, what a dump. Even the Clinton Library looked like a double-wide trailer. As an Arkansas native who grew up in the deep country, I can remember my first trip to Little Rock thinking it was awesome. I did some traveling in my early 20s, Denver, Corpus Christi, LA, and I realized I was missing out on life and I moved to the Northeast. Arkansas has some hidden rural gems and the Northwest is alright, but the whole state is really lacking. I drove past MT Rushmore once and as I approached I thought to myself, oh look, they have a mini MT Rushmore, only to realize that it was the actual MT Rushmore. A bit smaller than I expected. Edit, so I guess Keystone, South Dakota. Haha, that was my exact same reaction. Movies and TV make it look so much bigger. Atlantic City. Never going back there, much dirtier than I thought it would be. Going to Atlantic City is like stepping into a time machine and going back to any nearly bankrupt American city in 1982. It's so strange how what is really prime oceanside real estate just is basically a rundown shithole shell of its former self, a self that was never that great to begin with. Don't think I've ever met a city I didn't like. I even enjoyed Buffalo. Finally some positivity. Cairo. The sights were amazing. The people were absolutely unbelievably rude and clearly have done nothing in the past 4,000 years other than find pushy ways to suck money out of tourists. What's funny is that there's graffiti from around 2,000 years ago. The pyramids had been ancient for a long time by then and were famous, where Greek and Roman tourists complained about Egypt. Hayan Tomb. Beijing. Cancelled a trip to the Great Wall because the air pollution was so bad you couldn't see more than a couple meters in any direction. My snot was bloody like you wouldn't believe and I caught a respiratory infection that lasted 4 weeks. The Great Wall is great and all till you enter each tower, where it stinks of piss and the puddles inside are also piss XD. Memphis, Tennessee. It was just so dirty. You'll have a wonderful zoo though. Don't forget about the 12-year-olds walking around strapped in broad daylight for no discernible reason. Myrtle Beach, SC parking, lots of RVs, gun shops and the famous Dixie shop with Confederate memorabilia. That's only the good parts. Seeing so many people nodding off on the streets of Vancouver was a bit shocking. Been places like Detroit, LA, Tampa, etc. and never saw anything like it. Individual junkies, sure, but in Vancouver the sidewalks were lined with them. East Hastings Street in Vancouver is probably what you are thinking of. I've never seen anything like it anywhere else, including places with a lot of homeless like LA and SF. Bakersfield, California is by far the worst city in America. Car broke down there on a Friday at 8 PM and was stuck there for 3 days until repairs could be finished. Trash people. Downtown feels like a prison yard and it's just straight up ugly. Good luck going to a bar or nightclub and not having dudes with tattoos all over their head trying to hit on your girl in front of you. I was born and raised in Southern California, and due to circumstances I was looking to live somewhere in California that was more within my budget. After some research it seemed that Bakersfield was about the only candidate for housing I could afford. I just couldn't bring myself to go there, so now I eat ramen and ketchup. stolen from burger joints, for all my meals, but thank God I don't live in Bakersfield. Baltimore was probably the only American city I have felt uneasy walking in. There are some real sketchy parts of the city pretty close to Inner Harbor. There are some really nice neighborhoods, obviously, Federal Hill and Fells Point, but when I walked like 2 blocks from my hotel to a 7-Eleven for some snacks, the atmosphere got noticeably different very quickly. The couth drop-off curve going from absolutely anywhere to a 7-Eleven is always ridiculous.